the studio is agricultural expert and CEO, X-Ray Farms Consulting, African farmer Mogaji. It's nice to have you join us. Right?
Thank you for having me.
Great.
And joining us, MD CEO, Balma Farms Limited and past chairman of the Agri Group, Lagos State Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Wale Oyekoya. Thank you for joining us.
Happy Independence.
Exactly. Happy Independence to you too. All right. African farmer, let me start with you on this. We got our flag to become green because of our agriculture in the first place. Sure. That is our DNA. That is where we start from. That is who we are. But eventually, oil just truncated that and so on. But we see government talking, sometimes acting towards agriculture. But are they striking the right chords from your perspective? Talk to us.
Well, they mean well.
Okay.
And they are trying to get Agric on board. However, the result is not commensurate with the efforts and the activities and the media around it. So we can really do better than what we have in the sector. So, because we're not food sufficient in any staple. When I say any, I mean any staple, from rice, maize, tomatoes, name it. So we would actually want to see action with results, not efforts. Efforts and results, they are two different things.
But when you talk about action with results, the government has put in place the Anchor Borrower Scheme. I mean, isn't that an effort by the government?
Well, if you're going to look at the trend, we have to compare what happened in the pre-colonization and post-colonization. Before the colonization, you know what the population we have, and we know how much we are producing food. Are we still maintaining that level? Instead of that, we are not even getting to it. Before 1971, when we get the oil, we used to be top 10 in some of these farm produce.
Absolutely.
Name it. Granules,
the
cocoa,
pyramids.
The pyramids. When it was divided into the northern regions for the granules, western region for the cocoa, and the eastern region for the oil. If it is just those three items that the government have been able to really develop and deliver on it, we won't be where we are today. But because of the oil boom, it becomes oil doom when it comes to agricultural development. So to me, we still have a long way to go.
Now, when we talk about the government they mean well. African farmer, you said they mean well.
Yes.
What is that missing link with meaning well and doing it? What is really on ground now, and what's the difference between what they are saying and what they're doing?
Number one is the people at the helm of affairs. So you put a round peg in a round hole. You need an agriculture expert to run the agriculture ministry. So that's where they are getting it wrong.
But we just had a minister of agriculture who has been a farmer, who everyone knows.
Now, being a farmer is different from being
an agriculturist.
Being an investor is different from doing the work.
Okay.
So, take for instance, I've been around the country implementing projects. And so when you look at the past minister, Dr. Adesina, he's been to different countries administering projects, national projects. So when he came to the office, it was easy for him to pull networks in. He didn't work with the ministry per se. He pulled those resources, those networks in. We need that now. We need a minister who is current with the trends. We don't need a minister that you're talking about these things to. The Minister of State, the previous Minister of State was a PhD law. The current minister and the Minister of State, they have working knowledge of the sector, but they are not experts. So we need experts there, and we need age leverage. Because to be able to move around the country unannounced to inspect projects, you need age to be at your side. So the current minister is over 70. At that age, you should be coaching and mentoring people like us coming. So that role is not meant for that person. And the minister for state also is 58. used to be in power, is a politician. They mean well.
But if we dwell on the age and capacity of the person who is the minister of state, wouldn't we be putting or heaping too much on bureaucracy and things that are not practical?
No, so what we're saying is, really, there's nothing bad in having a chemist as a minister. It should just be an effective administrator to have the essays that would work with him. So and the reason why I still give the current minister that leeway is because he's acted in different capacities, in river basins, in different capacities. So we would like to see those things, but it's been out of the system for a long time.
All right, Wale, for you, are you seeing things in this same light, or is there more that has to be done when it comes to, because the government is looking at diversifying the economy, and agriculture is one thing that it is looking at strongly to do that?
Well, they've been talking about diversification, only God knows. But are they really putting their words to where it's supposed to be? Look at all the infrastructure that's supposed to develop the agriculture. We are not having the infrastructure in terms of security, power, road, all kind of stuff. And look at most of the Ankobra you talk about, all these intervention funds. Is it really getting to the hands of the real farmers? That's another question for another day. So until the government can really be proactive, until we can have visionary leaders, not just thinking about 2 or 4 years plans, but about 30, 50 years. That's what you call systematic government, not just a government of the day, not just, most of the policy we have today, they are not really people's oriented policy. These are policies just made for 1%. And what I mean by this is that if you look at our import base today, compared to around 1961, colonization, we are doing better. We are doing good.
All right. We have to leave it here now. Wale Oyekoya, thank you very much. African Farmer Mogaji, thank you very much for coming as well.
Thank you for having me.
Wale Oyekoya, an agriculturalist, as well as African Farmer Mogaji. I'd like to know why you have that name. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, let's first of all start off with dissecting the president's speech. Now, one of the issues I noted was that the president was not necessarily clear on investment strategy that we're expecting within the agricultural sector. Talk of diversification, and agriculture is expected to lead that trail. What do you make of the speech?
Definitely, I think there was some kind of misplaced of priorities in terms of our leaders. And we keep on saying that we need visionary leader that's going to think beyond 2 or 4 years of their post. And if you're talking about diversification of economy, it has to be definitely through the agriculture, which is the non-oil sector, because before 1971 that we discovered oil, we are really doing good when it comes to most of this farm produce. But what happened now? We used to be in the first 10 units in the whole world, maybe exporting some of this farm produce. But now is the reverse. So what is the government really doing to let us have our space of being on top of most of the farm produce with the kind of land we have in Nigeria? I don't think we should be importing any kind of food that could be able to be produced in this country.
Well, the president was also clear, saying that we have to move away from days of importing food and rather we should go back to exporting. But another issue that was raised is the fact that the president in his speech somewhat made it simplistic, saying that we would ensure that there's food sufficiency. Do you think we've had enough of stimulants in the economy today to actually achieve this? Looking at the fact that we signed the AFCFTA agreement, we now have our borders closed, and we have restriction on 43 items. Some have described this as a fire brigade approach, and we don't have enough of stimulants. What do you make of this?
Well, I'm not surprised. And so for me is why cry over spilled milk? So the document was signed, the borders are closed. So for me is, let's look at the opportunities there. And let's not talk about what is wrong. Nigerians must feed. West Africa depends on Nigeria for a lot of grains, considering desertification. Niger, they want to buy Nigerian grains because we have rainfall. So it's very clear that the private sector needs to have the right business models to take advantage, because the president was not clear on agriculture, was clear on oil and other sectors. So the private sector needs to come in and cash in with business models, especially what you call social enterprises, businesses that make profit from impact. That's the only way to go, because it's very clear that government is still focusing on oil. However, the border closure, even though I don't fully support it, and we know, when you know the leader, you plan with it. We know the president has unconventional ways of taking decisions. And so once he takes his decision, it doesn't change it very fast. So that means that in the next 4 years, we can plan with this border closure. And so many of us should launch into that and make food available profitably.
Okay, now, Wale, let's talk about value addition now. If we have our borders closed and we're expecting stimulants to boost local production, what level of value addition do you expect? So many have also said over the years, from the 1950s to the 60s, we started off with agriculture. We did not necessarily have value addition, processing en masse. Now we're also looking at oil again. We produce local oil, yet we still import refined. What do you expect now in terms of agriculture, ensuring that all of the infrastructural deficits we have is being attended to, and then we can have value addition? We have cocoa. We should be able to make a whole lot from it. There's just too much to be made from the value chain.
I mean, I'm really expecting the states to really come with some kind of program that is going to really be adding value to what we do in this country. Let us leave the federal government alone. What about the states? What are the states doing? Because if you look at all the Land Use Act now, the power is given to the governors. Federal government are only meant to provide the infrastructures, like conducive environment. But the state governors who are really charged to be able to create wealth in their own state, to create employment. Then coming down to the local government, what are the local governments doing? Are they just sharing money? What are they really doing to really make the effect of agriculture being fair? We should go away from taking agriculture as a hobby, but as a business. The moment we don't take it as a business, we keep on having the same problem we're having now. Land Use Act is a very good thing that we've been talking about, how this thing can be revisited, whereby the governor just sit down and allocate the land to whoever they want. But the people that really wanted to do farming were not given the opportunity. So to me, I think the state government should take the front seat of this.
African farmer Mogaji, in the area of processing as well, what level of investment are you also expecting this time around? The president touched on private-public partnerships.
I really don't expect a lot from the government. Let them stay with the policy. The private sector now needs to come in as cooperatives. That is what has worked across the world. It's the cooperatives. When private sector come together to solve processing, marketing, production as cooperatives, the value chain increases. So processing needs to be handled by the private sector, and we will see a lot of drive. Like today, 4,500 of us were gathering today in Ikeja to channel a way forward. We need to understand government is also broke. So when government sees private sector coming together, having a direction, they will come and support. And that's what government needs, and they need that direction from private sector.
Is it fair enough now to give the president a pat on his back? He says that we've made so much of progress along the value chain, from fertilizers to rice to feed production, animal feed production.
Until we are food secure, we won't pat him at the back.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, African farmer Mogaji, as well as Wale Oyekoya, an agriculturalist. And hopefully the president takes a cue from all of the discussions being held so far.